So, hey, welcome, Charles. Nice to see you this great morning for you. And here it is afternoon for me sitting outside in lovely Surrey County of England. It's about 70 degrees here, uh, getting later in the evening, and just a great time to see you and have a chat with you. Yeah, so welcome to this little introduction on what's going to happen in June.
Well, thank you, Joe.
Yeah, Charles, really the purpose of our little chat today is going to be to introduce you to the ICF chapter members and tell them a little bit about what's going to be happening on June the 8th, when you're going to be sharing your exciting uh, breakthrough you've had in how we can take our emotions and use them responsibly to impact our lives, to influence the leaders that we have in our lives, and just improve interpersonal relationships going all over. Obviously, you and I met. I think it was just with kind of I got some email from you inviting me to attend a seminar. I then attended that seminar and found it just so beneficial, and I took it immediately. Was able to take it immediately and put it into some coaching interactions I had. And by the way, even in my own personal family, and we were able to take those things. They're so usable, and yet they are so unique in terms of how to use emotions effectively, that I thought, hey, you would be a fantastic speaker and facilitator for a workshop for the ICF, and just so glad you're able to make the time to do it. So, hey, what's been your journey like getting to this point, and how did you come up with this amazing approach?
So the approach is called emotional responsibility, and
Okay.
In contrast to other approaches that are out there, um, I view painful emotions not as a problem. That there's nothing actually negative about painful emotions like fear and anger and anxiety and resentment and shame and grief and things like that. The negativity comes in when we don't understand what the emotions are telling us. But once we understand what the emotions are telling us, we can actually partner with them to improve our effectiveness, both in the present moment as well as in similar situations going forward. And I'll lay this out in a little mini workshop we're going to be doing on June 8th as part of the chapter meeting.
Wow.
Yeah, and how I came to this, it actually started a long time ago. I was on summer vacation with my family in Europe in 1982, and we were driving through the Alps, and I was driving, and we were stuck behind a truck on a very windy road with a rock wall to the left and a cliff to the right. And it was frustrating because we were stuck behind this slow moving truck kind of going uphill. And my father saw an opportunity. He saw that the road curved around to the right, and he said, you're free to pass. So I pull out, I'm passing the truck on my right, and unexpectedly the road turns to the left. So my dad had misappraised the whole situation. And as we turn to the left, I'm face to face with an oncoming truck that's bearing down on me, right? And instantly, I am the most terrified I've ever been in my life. I am just 100% afraid. But unlike other experiences I had had in the past about being afraid, I was totally calm, completely relaxed. 100% of my attention was on how am I going to save the lives of myself and my family. And time slowed. I had 100% of my attention focused on this. And I watched in amazement as this dialogue took place between my conscious mind and my fear. And so I considered my options. My first option, I thought, would be to slam on the brakes, slide back, get behind the truck I had just passed, and instantly my subconscious, which as you probably know, our subconscious mind processes information at 250,000 times faster than the conscious mind, generated this image of what it thought would happen, its prediction of what it would happen, and it had us rolling in the car down the cliff to the right. So the only other option I saw was to slam on the accelerator and go forward. And as I'm consciously thinking about this, even before I consciously think about it, this surge of just power and force moves through my being, hits the accelerator extremely skillfully, steers between the oncoming truck and the truck to our right, using the Doppler effect to know where I was. And inches from each truck slid in, no accident, no one died. And I realized that I never felt as alive in that moment, any time in my life. It was the most alive I'd ever felt. I would later call this an experience of being a force of nature.
Yeah.
I was just a force of nature. And many, many people have had an experience that's similar to this and it's often with fear. So I pulled off to the side of the road as soon as I could, just to see how my family was doing. I turned around, they're all white, like sheets.
I can imagine.
But I was in this exalted state. And I just stepped out, this beautiful view of the Alps, and I resolved in that moment just to figure out how to spend as much of my life in this state as I could. And that has been the organizing principle of my research and my career. And it eventually led to this brand new understanding of emotions, which I call the effectiveness view of emotions, and this associated methodology called emotional responsibility. And with it, any emotion, whether it's anger or shame or whatever, can become this opportunity to become a force of nature and have this exhilarating, like just this peak experience while becoming extremely effective.
So what then was the journey to discover, how better to use our emotions?
So one of the first things I went looking for is who else has had experiences like that? How did they describe it? What did they attribute the experience to? So this is 1982, and it's well before Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi wrote his book Flow. But flow is probably the best description in the Western literature, psychological literature, of what this state is like. So that didn't come till years later, but at the time I began looking through, because it had this almost mystical quality to the experience. I did sort of the comparative religion sort of thing, and I found in every spiritual tradition, there was a description of this state. And the one that resonated the most with me is the term Sahaja Samadhi from the Indian tradition. And it's described as this kind of spontaneous state of union, where I interpret as union between my conscious mind and my subconscious needs. And when you're in that state of union, everything flows. And instead of your conscious mind fighting with your subconscious, right? Most of the techniques out there for managing your emotions, they amount to fighting with your subconscious. Like, how do I subdue my anger? How do I calm down before I make decisions? Right? And you're leaving all that energy that the anger is bringing you on the table, right?
Wow.
The fear is bringing you on the table.
So you're kind of stifling the very thing that, if you use it properly, can bring you to a much better state of mind. And I think one of the things you described was something that you turn a sense of stress into groundedness or something like that, and that there's, so you move from an agitated state, if you will, into a much better state. So prefrontal cortex can operate rather than your amygdala firing all over the place. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but it's that's kind of from my experience of neurology about kind of what happens, isn't it? Huh? But it's a use of the energy in a much better way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think so after kind of studying this state of Sahaja Samadhi, and by the various names in these traditions, and the big question that you actually find in the authors that have it is, when you're in this state, when you have one of these experiences, it feels like home. It feels totally natural. It's like, oh, this is who I am. This is how I'm supposed to operate. Okay. There's this conviction that this is my natural state. And so that leads to this very interesting question. What is it that's taking me out of this natural state? If this is our naturally adaptive, effective, flowing way of being, what is it that takes us out? Yeah. And so I didn't discover this state of flow, but I'm pretty sure I have discovered what it is that takes us out. Yeah. And it's this widespread, culturally conditioned belief that our emotions are caused by what's happening in the world. Okay? And so if we believe that our emotions are being caused by what's happening in the world, and those emotions are painful, it immediately puts us into an antagonistic relationship to what's happening out there in the world. Okay? If instead we recognize that the emotion is not a readout on what's happening in the world, it's a readout of how effective we're being in fulfilling our needs in the midst of what's happening out there in the world. So I call this erroneous view of emotion the circumstantial view of emotion, and I call this view of emotion as arising in response to whether we're on track to fulfill our needs or not as the effectiveness view of emotion. When you're in the circumstantial view, that's characterized by stress, reactivity, negativity, brooding rumination, those sort of repetitive, intrusive thought cycles, and then reluctance that can show up as procrastination or not following through or dragging your heels or self-sabotage even. That all comes from living in the circumstantial view. And I've done studies, mostly at Fortune 500 companies. Most people interpret most of their emotions through the circumstantial view. Move to the effectiveness view, and you partner with your emotions and subconscious. And it's an experience of being grounded in your body, completely composed, accountable for how you're feeling and your own responsibility to resolve, not manage, but resolve the painful emotion in the direction of greater effectiveness. So you're constantly improving. And because all of you is on board for everything that you're doing, you're going for it all the time. Yeah. And so,
wow, I wish we had more time to kind of go into this, but trying to, save some of this great information you're sharing with us, I guess, for the workshop. So what do you propose in this hour and a half we're going to have on June the 8th? What are you proposing to cover? And then what will be the benefits for those people the members who sign in, who are part of this virtual workshop?
So I open it up by sharing this new theory of emotion, and that's pretty quick. I can go through it pretty quickly. And what's cool about this is almost everyone says that totally resonates with me. Yeah, it feels right to me, and I've never seen anything like it.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Right. It's like obvious once you see it, but it's not obvious a moment before. So we really look at this new understanding of emotion. Yeah. Then I share a technique that I've developed on how you can resolve any painful emotion. Now that you understand this theory, I can walk through the technique and kind of illustrate it. And then I invite people to apply this technique to an instance of frustration in their life. Yeah. And so people so we'll do that right away in the workshop.
Yeah.
Oh, in the workshop. I mean,
Yeah. Great.
it's not just a presentation, like it's a mini workshop. Just
Yeah.
as you
Okay.
experience, many people are able to apply it to themselves and to their
Wow.
coaching clients that fast.
Just like that. Wow.
And I think the reason why you can learn this so quickly is because this is how we naturally operate. I've
Mm,
discovered this.
yeah.
And so really to really shift yourself on an ongoing basis from the circumstantial view to the effectiveness view is an unlearning process
Yeah.
more than learning something new.
So
So
we're going to have to develop some new habits, aren't we? And this will be the start of
totally,
developing a new
totally.
habit about a way of dealing with our emotions and using our emotions effectively, as you said, to resolve
Yeah,
situations, not just managing them. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Good.
So people will work in pairs in little breakout rooms to
Yeah.
coach each other through. And I provide what I call an emotion decoder for frustration. And you just read the questions to the other person, and light bulbs start to go off for them.
Yeah.
It's really easy. Most people make quite a bit of progress resolving this instance of frustration. In some cases, they've been frustrated about this for quite a while.
Yeah.
Then we come back from the breakout rooms. We have a conversation. I generalize this to other
Mm.
emotions, and then the last few minutes of it is I pitch a 12-week course I have for how you can actually embody this new understanding and way of working with your
Oh,
emotions.
boy.
Um,
Wow, that's really exciting, Charles, and I can't wait to kind of release this and into a group of highly professional and wide-ranging view from brand new coaches all the way up to master coaches. I think all of us will be able to gain so much. What would be some of the benefits you think we can take away?
um, so I think the first benefit is you'll emerge from this workshop at least intellectually knowing that there is no such thing as a distressing or negative emotion,
Okay.
right? There are simply painful emotions that you're misinterpreting through the circumstantial view. So
Okay.
once you start to have this distinction of the circumstantial or the effectiveness view, then if you find yourself stressed, reactive, negative, spinning in your thoughts, reluctant to do something, you know that you're in the circumstantial view, and you can then ask the types of questions that you practiced in the breakout room to shift yourself into the effectiveness view. And so certainly be able to do that. You'll certainly be able to walk your coaching clients through how to resolve their frustration. And you may even be able to generalize that to some of the other emotions. So I present 7 emotions in the webinar,
Yeah.
and they're frustration, fear, anxiety, anger, resentment, shame, and grief.
Yeah.
And we talk a little bit about how to resolve all of those. And
Wow.
what's cool about this is once, it's just like anything else. Like when you first learn to drive a car, there's a lot to pay attention to. But as you kind of get it in your muscle memory,
Mm.
it becomes second nature or returns you to your original nature. And
Mm.
you just increasingly flow through situations that in the past you get a little stuck in.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. Well, thank you, Charles, for taking this time to share that with them. And so, anyone watching this video, so here's what you're going to be doing. Come along and learn how to much more effectively deal with your emotions, to take responsibility not only for your own emotions, but and when you're coaching, but also for the emotions of your clients and the way they're moving through their situations, so that they can learn to be empowered to use that energy that is kind of bound up in those emotions, especially when we see them as being negative rather than positive. And look forward to you being able to share more, Charles. It's going to be an amazing event. So that's June the 8th. We're going to be on the air, ready to go at 6:45 right after we've had the business meeting, and it's going to go on for an hour and a half, and there'll be plenty of time for questions, and you'll be able to apply. And hey, if you want to take advantage of the course afterwards, certainly that's something I'm going to do. And I know you'll have a great event. So Charles, thanks a lot. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you again on June the 8th.
Thank you, Joe. It was a pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Blessings to you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.